the first question, let me contextualize. In the last 10 years, we have been growing at good economic growth rates. In the next 10 years, and the rest of the world has not been growing so much, except China. Even Brazil is not doing very well, but China has still been growing. So we have been growing. The rest of the world has not really been growing, except China. But in the next 10 years, we'll see a fall in the prices of commodities, which means that the growth, if we base our growth on commodities, we will face enormous challenges in the next 10 years. And in the next 10 years, the rest of the world will start to grow again. So the next 10 years are absolutely fundamental for the transformation of the continent. So this is why I'm saying, in terms of leadership, it will be extremely critical that we have leaders that have as an objective that structural transformation. 50 years ago, the objective of the African leaders was decolonization, political liberation. In the next 50 years, it has to be about economic transformation. Why? Let me take Mali, 20 million inhabitants, 75% of the population under 25. Coming on the, if you look at the cohorts of young coming on the employment market every year, it's about 300,000 young people between 18 and 25. They need jobs. If they don't get jobs through a diversification of the economy with industrialization, they will destabilize Mali. I'm just saying Mali, I could take another example. So economic transformation will be the key objective for the leaders. And given the potential that we have, and given the governance requisites that are needed in order to push that economic transformation, leadership will be the fundamental key to unblock the future of this continent. So I'm not saying that those who are present now are failing. I'm saying that it is becoming even more critical in the next 10, 15 years to have really a transformative leadership. If we don't have a transformative leadership, we'll fall back again to the 90s and be marginalized. So that's my point. On openness and transparency, if we compare most of African countries today with other countries in other continents, I think we have made sound progresses in terms of intensification of democratization processes. I was referring to the fact that we had 40 elections were regularly held and accepted. It's an important point because, as you know, talking about the media revolution, most of these elections today are checked through technological means. And that media revolution, that IT revolution, has enhanced and has empowered the common citizen so that he can play an acute role in making sure that these processes are more and more transparent. The freedom of the press, in most of the African countries today, whenever there is a corruption dossier challenge, you find it automatically or immediately in the press. The freedom of the press has pushed towards that transparency. And it is very important because the capacity of the governments to auto-reform themselves is always limited. So you need that type of pressure from the civil society, from the media, in order to push for less secrecy and more transparency. On doing business, I don't agree with you, because if you look at the World Bank report on doing business, Africa has evolved quite impressively in the last 5 years. So the environment for doing business is much better today than it was 5 years ago, and this has been thoroughly checked, and I think we are on the sound path. And as you know, foreign direct investments in Africa is quite high, and compared to 10 years ago. So on doing business, I think we are doing quite well.
My name is Ashraf Rashid. I'm a member of the African Peer Review Panel of Eminent Persons, which is a panel that oversees good governance issues in Africa.
I know there are a lot of key points were touched on today about African growth and increasing the security and implementing the good governance in Africa. So many people made a valid point today concerning Africa. I just had a follow-up question about how do we invest in media houses in Africa? How do we give the media houses a freedom of press in Africa?
Sure. I think, as you might have noted from the speakers today, Dr. Mayaki, who is the CEO of NEPAD, and myself, that there is concrete steps which are moving towards establishing good governance in Africa, and this entails also the freedom of the press. So we are moving gradually to ensure that Africa has an environment which encourages the freedom of press, also the activity and engagement of the civil society in this. What I have noted here, that yourself and other Americans from African descent who are here, I have noticed how, and I was impressed really by how much interest you have in your own countries and how much hope you have for your own countries. And I think you and others who are so emotional about seeing Africa progress in the right direction should unite together, first of all, organize your work and harmonize it, and then try to be a voice of Africa in the States. And I think this can be done. I would encourage you very much to try and connect with similar institutions in Africa, similar press organizations, and I'm sure that we have a responsibility also to help you in doing this, because not always the news or the coverage about Africa is positive. You find a lot of negative, and particularly disasters like Ebola make the news, but when you have something of a positive aspect, they rarely appear in the media here. So I think you have all the responsibility to help in putting a realistic image of Africa. Yes, there are things which need reform, and we need to move together to highlight these issues and to highlight the deficiencies, but equally there are elements which are positive, and we should project them particularly to the audience outside Africa. And this is an area which I hope you would put some focus on.
Talking about the speech this morning, we heard about by in 10 years the leaders of Africa, in leaders of Africa, there will be no more. How do we invest in this young generation, that this generation will be the one to lead Africa forward if we don't invest in education?
Sure, you are right. What Dr. Mayaki, the CEO of NEPAD, mentioned about that in 10 years there will be some sort of a change of a generation in leadership is quite natural, because I think there is now, as he rightly said, the majority of our societies is composed of maybe 70% or 60% who are in the age of 25 or under. So these are the leaders of the future, and these are the ones who, if we provide them with the tools, they will be good leaders. And as you rightly said, education is one thing, the training is one thing. Basically raising them on the real values of Africa, which is solidarity, which is honesty, which is transparency. All this, I think, will ensure that this youth or this young generation can be capable of carrying the future of Africa forward. Education is very important. We need to do more. We need also to benefit from Africans who came to the States and to similar countries, developed countries, and have learned and gained experience also to engage themselves with their countries, and maybe one day they can go back and be a productive force within the country.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Thank you.